Melissa, Science, Technology and Innovation Minister YB Khairy Jamaluddin said that the vaccine rollout will commence at the end of this month, with the PM being the first to receive the vaccine, followed by frontliners and at-risk individuals. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on social media and even among our own family and friends, outlining the concerns that we have for a vaccine that was built in such a short amount of time. How will this rollout plan help to boost the Rakyat's confidence in getting the vaccine?
Hi, Asha. I mean, I hear you about the vaccine confidence. There's been a lot of talk about, whether this vaccine has had enough time to go through the proper clinical trials, and, getting any kind of drug, vaccine developed within the space of a year is a remarkable feat, let alone the one that we've seen, in COVID in the last year. And it's been kind of couched in a lot of medical jargon, and it's been very difficult to get people to understand that. I think the main issue here is to do with vaccine confidence, right? It's not so much about the conspiracy theorists or people who are anti-vaxxers. It's about people who just are skeptical of how this vaccine is being developed, skeptical of where the vaccine comes from. And the way to counter that distrust is with open communication. Transparency helps build confidence, and the more that this process is opaque and hidden from the Rakyat, that's what I think breeds vaccine hesitancy. What we need right now is a very clear communication plan. That is, I think, the basis, that should be the basis, the foundation of the national vaccine rollout, is to communicate to the public about the vaccine, what they're going to get, how it's going to affect them, how it's going to be administered, and so the more information we have, the more empowered we feel, and that banishes any kind of hesitancy, I think.
On that though, Melissa, sometimes don't you think that the news that everyone's watching and then they're getting news from social media as well, there's just an overabundance of news that people are just coming to their own conclusions about, this vaccine doesn't work for this strain and everything. People are just jumping to conclusions sometimes, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, there's so much noise out there, and noise makes us confused, right? Which is why this is the time for, I think, really kind of strong leadership and clear communication. I'm actually really glad that the government is not making this vaccine mandatory. So there's something about the voluntary nature that makes us feel more empowered. It's our decision, and what we need to make that decision is information, not noise, not all the pollution, the noise pollution that we see on information channels, but rather very clear, concise information from authorities that we trust. And that comes back again to the confidence, because underlying all this is trust, whether we have trust in the government, trust in our institutions. And I think over a certain period of time, there's been an erosion of that trust, and needing to dial up the trust once again, or to gain that trust once again, I think is going to be quite a monumental challenge for Minister Khairy Jamaluddin and his team.
I think one thing that's really going to help is sort of seeing leaders step up, like the PM taking it first, because the Queen's had it. The PM, when PMs have it, when the leaders have it and they don't turn blue, I think that goes a long way to go. Look, we'll take it first. Where we want to show you that we believe that this is good. So I think that helps. But in your opinion, how viable is the actual rollout plan, especially since registration requires a mobile app that has been buggy at times, and also not everybody, has a phone that can have a smart sort of app on it?
Yeah, I think the main concern, that's also been a concern of mine, and we've spoken to some experts about it. It's especially when we talk about the digital divide and those who fall on the other side of the digital divide, the concern also extends to those who are immobile, who cannot perhaps come out to get the vaccine, those who are not captured by the system, who are not within the MySejahtera system. And this is where I think data comes into play, data at a local level. So state governments, local governments will need to play a big role in helping identify those who are frontliners, those who are at risk, those who need the vaccine, who are should be prioritized for the vaccine. This is where NGOs working on the ground for with migrants and for undocumented persons, they will be, they will have a crucial role to play in feeding this information to the vaccine rollout team. Again, the rollout is in the execution, and the execution is in getting the logistics right, the administration of this vaccine right, identifying the right people. I mean, there are a million cogs in this, and I'm like you worried that one tiny little cog could be misplaced. So and I mean, I think they weren't kidding when they said that this is an all of society approach. It's the biggest vaccination effort that we've ever had to deal with, and it really takes all of us to make this work.
Brilliant.
Perfecto. You're amazing.
No, but the big question is, it's voluntary. When it comes out, Melisa, would you step up and?
I would be the first in line to take it.
Really?
Yes,
okay,
I would.
okay.
Yes, I'm excited.
I want to do it not because I'm of course I'm concerned about my parents and everything, but I'm like, I want to see whether I'll grow an extra hand that's growing out of my forehead or something like that. See what this thing will come up with and everything, Because I'm a big conspiracy theorist and stuff like that. Yeah. Why not, man? I've watched World War Z.
You know that the interesting thing is like how many variants are coming up now, and how the vaccine doesn't seem to be working against any of the lesser variants. But in my opinion, as long as they work against the more deadly variants, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I think that the experts have said that 50% efficacy with a large herd immunity is better than 100% efficacy with just you.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna have to convince JD to take it soon. So
he's gonna be the first one there. I'm the one that's a little bit
this
like,
one, this one, I don't know.
But having said that, that's also to do with like health issues. So it's kind of like I need to find out whether the doctor will go, yeah, you can.
And you were saying whether the Prime Minister should be the first person to take it to build trust and all that. I think that if you see someone you trust take it, like your doctor, or that
someone you trust,
I think that does a lot more than watching politicians take a shot and take their shirt off and get a shot in public. I'd rather not tune in.
I'd rather not see them take their shirts off in public.
Yes, that's right.
Shot or no shot, just keep it on. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to break 2.
All right, sure.
Okay. Next one. Frontpage, 16th Feb. Break 2.
Yesterday, Malaysia had a cumulative total of 261,000 cases in comparison to 138,000 when the movement control order was announced on January 11th, almost a 95% increase from January 11th. The twice extended MCO is scheduled to expire next Thursday on February the 18th. Based on these numbers alone, should Malaysians expect the MCO to be extended any further?
Asha, I'll look into my crystal ball.
Would you, darling? I'll toss you some money later.
I mean, this is the thing. It's really about, I think the heart of the issue here is the uncertainty, right? We don't know whether it's going to be extended another 2 weeks. We don't know whether after those 2 weeks it's going to be extended another 2 weeks. As we've seen in the past, it's always been this 2 weeks extension. In the beginning, that was fine because we needed the flexibility to assess the situation. But 1 year down the line, I think what we need now is a little bit more certainty, a bit more long-term planning and clarity in communication. So if it's going to be a month of MCO, then at the start of it, say it's going to be a month of MCO, and we will reassess accordingly. If we do need to make change, if the government does need to make changes for the time frame of an MCO. But here's where I struggle with it, really. It's not the extension of the MCO that I think bothers most people. I think it's the lack of consistency and coherence when it comes to SOPs. The MCO period itself is fine, but the constant changing and tweaking of SOPs has led to a lot of anger and frustration, and I think that breeds a lot of fatigue when it comes to MCO and SOP compliance.
Well, it's confusion as well. Like I know for me personally, sort of one day everything's closed up in the community where I live, and the next day there's kids running around and stuff. I'm like, when did it open up? So yeah, confusion as well. So you end up doing the wrong thing without meaning to. But it does look like this MCO 2.0 hasn't really helped bring down the numbers. But in your opinion, will Malaysia's economy be able to sustain another full lockdown like MCO 1.0?
Yeah, so the experts that we speak to on the show warn us against thinking of this false dichotomy between saving lives and saving livelihoods. It's not one or the other. There is a way to save both. And the way to do that includes a range of public health measures, including a long-term a viable economic plan that includes, you can have targeted lockdowns, blanket lockdowns that we've seen in the past 1 year ago, actually. That was really a blunt tool to manage the pandemic. I think now 1 year down the road, we should be a little bit smarter and have targeted lockdowns for specific areas that are seeing high daily caseloads.
Yes.
But, the idea that the economy needs to go on, that's true. What is needed also during this period is for those sectors of the economy that just cannot be opened up to have the correct and sufficient financial aid. That's what's really needed at at this point in time. Then we wouldn't be having this conversation about should we open up the economy, but what about saving lives? Yeah. So if there are the right steps taken to provide sufficient financial aid, then I think we can do both, helping the medical sector, the public healthcare, to keep the caseloads down, and to help people who really need help when it comes to small businesses and micro SMEs.
Do you think Malaysians, the rakyat, we are not following the SOPs as closely as we should be as well?
Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? You want me to call out my friends who haven't been wearing masks or hanging out at
in a way, yeah.
But do you? I mean, like, honestly, you don't have to say names and stuff, but do you? Because I know, like, I have that problem of like, do I say anything? No, it's your life. I
think to a certain degree there is a little bit of SOP fatigue. I think a large part of it has to do with, why should I follow the rules if other people don't and get away with it? But also there is this idea you brought up earlier, confusion. Is this right? Is this not right? To be completely frank with you, I think we've done a great job in this past year educating people about physical distancing, about mask wearing, about the need for ventilation, hand hygiene. All of that we know, but because I think we've gotten away with perhaps not being as vigilant, we've gotten away with non-compliance. We've seen other people get away with non-compliance, and that's led to us, feeling like, well, why should I follow the rules? I mean, that's the basis of any kind of society, right? It's your civic duty to do something. And if it's not, then, what are we? I mean, society will break down. But we're talking about a pandemic here. This is how the virus spreads. I know it's clear to everyone, but it's rather frustrating not to know how this ends, not to see an end point. Because we can't see the end point, we feel, well, will my efforts today make a difference tomorrow?
It's like rebelling against your parents, do as I say, don't do as I do. And the parents are doing one thing and the kids are going, well, why should we follow the rules?
Exactly.
I follow all my parents' rules.
Sure you do, idiot.
Good boy. I'm pretty sure someone will object to that. Someone will say something. No, not quite.
No. They are the ones that told me to get earrings.
Oh,
actually, I was discussing a tattoo with my son yesterday, and he had a very fascinating tattoo that he would like to get, and I misunderstood his explanation. So I thought it was something that it was like to do with the family. I was like, oh, right. So I can get it like a matching one, but different, but slightly. And he looked at me and went, basically swearing at me like, Mum,
No.
go get your own. This is all mine. And you can't get anything like this. I'm like, hey, dude, he's 13, right?
Okay. So he's thought about what he wants already.
Yeah, if he's going to get one, he's like, it has to have meaning. It's going to be there, stuck there. He's a real sensible. I don't know how that
that's
happened.
really
but
nice.
Yeah.
I have multiple. I didn't. Well, just at the moment, I was like, okay, cool.
Do you talk to your mother about it?
Yes, in fact, she's the one that told me to get it.
I mean, did she set certain guidelines like, okay, you can get this one but not that one, or you can get my name but
I love my mummy.
Yeah,
exactly.
like an anchor, like sailor's mom.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's quickly moving on.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Can you scroll, please?
Yes. Front page, 16 Feb, number break 3. Oh,
Right.
hold on. One moment. This is too small.
Okay.
Oh, could you give me 1 second? I forgot the name of the integrity stand. Okay, sure. All right, here we go.
Okay, cool. We're good. Right.
Sorry. I've not been to bed all night. Sorry.
Oh no!
Wait,
I'm
hold on. Let me start this
Yeah,
again
okay,
because
sorry.
this has gone on way too far.
Okay.
Oh God.
Grandpa, he's such a cranky uncle.
No, I'm just saying it's easier to edit. Okay, go.
Okay.
Front page, 16 Feb, break 3.
Two incidents of women getting sexually harassed at roadblocks have been brought to the attention of Bukit Aman Department of Integrity and Compliance Standards Director Datuk Zamri Yaya, who stated that the Kuala Lumpur and Penang police departments are currently investigating both incidences. So what is the protocol when it comes to lodging a complaint when getting harassed in such a, deviant manner?
Well, this, when I saw this story on social media, what happened was many other women coming out to share similar stories, and I really felt for them. I haven't had a similar experience myself, but I could relate, and I felt terrible. The idea that you would be harassed at a roadblock is scary already, but how many women actually have come forward or know their rights at a roadblock or know how to make a complaint? And I think we've had a couple of comments by lawyers and rights groups who have been talking about, okay, these are your rights at a roadblock. You should make a complaint, take down the officer's badge number, take down the name, make sure you remember the details, and submit a complaint, a police report. The question is whether those reports actually do get investigated, whether remedial action will be taken to the offending officer, and it's all of that is quite opaque. We don't know because the police investigate internally, and we're not quite sure I personally don't know what happens, and I've spoken to several lawyers who talk of rights, the legal rights of our legal rights when we are questioned or detained. Mm-hmm. But up to that point, I mean, that there's been calls for an IPCMC, an independent a committee on this, and this is why we need one. We need an independent body to help look into the conduct and misconduct of police.
Yes, because I mean, as Malaysians, we tend to be skeptical about making police reports because, there is this feeling that they go nowhere or nothing sort of happens with them. And sort of having assurances that these complaints will be taken seriously is important. Do you think that with this coming out now that it will start to change, where we will be privy to some information that happens, and then the information that needs to be known by everybody will be made more readily available, so that if this were to happen to them again, I've had a situation which made me feel very uncomfortable, to sort of have the wherewithal to know how to play the situation.
Yeah, that's a good point because, the more we talk about this, the more we feel empowered because we hear similar stories. We know what to do next, perhaps, and it's about getting educated. But it's also about understanding how widespread the problem is.
Yeah.
I honestly think that there is a certain level of awareness now that we might be, there is a platform to perhaps raise, even though it's through social media, there's a solidarity when you hear similar stories similar to yours. But this is why we need that independent committee that I mentioned earlier, the IPCMC. This is why we need the sexual harassment bill. This is why we need, because those bills and those laws and those committees, they don't just form a function of remedial action or looking into investigation, but they also perform a function of advocacy and awareness, talking about what it is that is, sexual harassment, providing training for the people in positions of power and influence to be more sensitive. So I think
it's a system that needs to be put into place. Yeah,
exactly. I completely agree with you. And really not just about, a private investigation. This is not about shaming anyone or shaming any, police body. This is not about detracting from the good work that they've done, but rather, improving.
Misconduct and bad apples, basically.
Correct. Exactly.
Cool.
Did you see me with my skirts going around the issue? Skirting.
I didn't think record it. Yeah, just saying, just in case.
That was just a very English joke.
All right, okay, I'll just
some
say.
people get it. Yeah.
Well,
one has to be delicate, so one needs to skirt.
Cool. PDRM.
We're actually doing a show on this tonight.
Really?
Yeah. I've had enough. So I'm gonna sorry, I'm just gonna call out that.
Actually, you know what? One more thing that we wanted to talk about, but there's just so many things that's going on. Was the sugar book thing? That
my God!
We're gonna talk about that, but we didn't.
Oh my Lord! Yes. What was that?
Yeah.
I haven't even seen it on the news. I'm like down to go back home and
And Sunwave University Paris on high up, and then Sunwave University came up with a statement saying, "No, this is very unfair. You shouldn't call us out that way." And I'm like,
why not?
The ironic thing was the ministry, I think, was so quick to come out and deny this whole sugar book thing.
Right, yeah.
But then there was also over the weekend, the story broke about academic fraud. So within academia circles, they're filing fake papers and
really,
and that was silent. No one said anything about that. I know,
man.
I missed that. I would have brought it up.
Yeah, because everything was about sugar daddies. My God.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Hold on. This is number 3.
And you just rolling.
Yeah. Hold on.
Things.
Break 3. Break 4. Okay. Cool. Two more, Melissa.
This is
two more.
The sexual harassment bill. Okay.
Cool. Oh, I like this one. Let's do this.
Okay.
Front page 16 Feb. Break 4.
Dr. Sri, Dr. Wan Aziza Wan Ismail and Hannah Yo have called for the long-delayed sexual harassment bill to be tabled in Parliament soon to create safer spaces free from sexual harassment for the people, especially women and girls. So how will the sexual harassment bill be effective in fighting harassment, especially in cases like the 2 women in Penang and Kuala Lumpur that were harassed by law enforcement or law enforcers?
All right. Well, I was waiting anxiously last year for the tabling of the sexual harassment bill. They promised it was going to be tabled last year. That did not materialize, of course, because the Parliament sitting was shortened. But now we have comments from the Minister of Women Affairs to say that it's going to be tabled in March. I don't know how that's going to, or you said it's going to be ready in March. I don't quite know how that's going to happen, given that we're under a state of emergency. Parliament has been, there's no Parliament until August. So
how would that happen then if, Parliament's not around till August?
I actually don't know. I mean, but this bill has bipartisan support. I don't think that there's, much like the Undi 18 bill, this bill has bipartisan support. There's a lot of support from both sides of the aisle.
Okay.
The question is why, the more the fact that we can't have our lawmakers sit and debate bills means we can't have new laws like this this sexual harassment law that is urgently needed for victims of sexual harassment to have some form of redress, some form of some form of protection, because as we know, the current laws are just not sufficient. Not only are they not sufficient, they're old. They're old.
What are the, JD and I were talking about this, what are the current laws in place right now for sexual harassment?
I'm a little ill-equipped with my legal knowledge on this, but how I understand it is that what this sexual harassment bill seeks to address is what current laws, the gaps within current laws. So I think current laws have discuss I think don't have a clear definition as to what is sexual harassment, or it's too narrow. So it maybe looks at assault, it looks at criminal offenses. But as we know, sexual harassment is so wide-ranging now. It also includes the digital space. It includes, it includes verbal, non-verbal. It includes touch, non-touch. All of those things need to be included in this current bill, which is why it's so important that we table and pass this bill so quickly. I cannot emphasize how strongly I feel about this, that we need this urgently.
So if I were to ask you, in the greater scheme of things, where does this bill stand compared to everything else that Malaysia's facing today? What would you say?
Oh, okay. So, I honestly think that there shouldn't be a trade-off. Yes, we're battling a pandemic. Yes, our public health systems need our help, need everyone to comply, and most people are battling on a day-to-day basis with surviving, just surviving. But I mean, as the Prime Minister said, the government shouldn't stop, even under a state of emergency, even during a pandemic. So lawmaking should continue, sound policy making should continue, helping the vulnerable and the marginalized should continue, which is where I see this bill. There is a sense of urgency that I feel that I'm not seeing reflected in my lawmakers.
And that is actually relevant to the current pandemic and what's happening now. So it all ties in. Yeah. Okay. So, you said,
how will it even be passed then?
Yeah, how do you think it could be passed quickly? Can it? How can it?
Okay, so since we don't have a parliament, and the state legislative assemblies are no longer sitting or meeting or creating laws and policies, all the power has been consolidated to the few, to the Prime Minister and a council. So maybe they can look into it. Maybe they can pass it, or maybe we can write to the Agong and he can look into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make since all the power is now consolidated, let's go to the people who are holding power.
It seems that this pandemic has gotten the people writing to the king quite a lot. I think we should. Hashtag, whatever we call it. I love this. Yeah. Dear King.
Royal problems.
Yeah, royal. Yeah.
I quite like the Dear Agong thing. That's quite a nice. Right. It's like an agony aunt column.
Yeah, it'd be great, man. Oh my God. Dear Agong. Every time he answers something,
actually,
it should go on
Twitter.
What?
That would be a nice Twitter account. Dear Agong.
Do it, yeah.
No, someone should do this.
Holy
how there's like the God Twitter and then the voice of dogs, whatever. Yeah. It should be the Dear Agong.
And he should always end it with scared to anything to do with the 3 R's. You know what I mean? Like anything touching royalty is terrifying.
But he should, if he does that, like a one kind of Twitter account, he should always end it with royal.
My lord,
that'd be brilliant, man. Sexual harassment bill.
Yeah,
it's funny that everything to do with sexual harassment has the word bill in it, like Clinton. Anyway, okay, cool. Link, save.
I don't know how the orange bobblehead's still walking free.
They're protecting themselves.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
I don't understand politics. My
technically, he can run again, which is so scary. People wonder, how come you never want to go back to the States? Duh.
Was he acquitted for the first one? I don't even seem to remember that. Like that sort of verdict coming out. It's like there he is going to be impeached, and then
No, he
suddenly
was
they're
impeached.
silent. Yeah, I know.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, so was he
He was
acquitted,
more like James and a
or
giant
did
peach.
it just disappear?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Now the word impeachment means nothing right now in the States, unfortunately. Cool. All right. Let's do the last one.
He can be proud of himself that he's the only one to have been impeached twice.
Yeah, he should join like
okay.
army training that you can evade anything.
In a flashback. Really? I have to say that?
Right.
I know. Maybe you shouldn't. Is that okay to say that?
Former Prime Minister Najib Razak
Just start with former Prime Minister Najib Razak.
said his pledge to invest. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just start with former Prime Minister.
Yeah, okay.
No, because if you say in a flashback, Melissa will stop laughing.
I'm going to start laughing.
Both of you will start laughing, and I'm like trying to record this, and I'm like,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, this is like Najib trying to. I'm not going to say this on air, but you know.
Hey, hold on. Hold on.
You see how we save your life?
Oh my God, dude, Melissa.
All
right, cool. Front page, 16 Feb, break 5.
Former Prime Minister Najib Razak said his pledge to the Employees Provident Fund, or EPF, to invest in the US has yielded good returns for the fund, with the rate for last year expected to equal the one declared by ASB at 4.45% or even higher. How risky is it for us Malaysians to have our EPF invested in open international markets?
Right. So I think EPF, looking at their asset allocation, they've got quite a high percentage of overseas investment holdings in assets, and that's been really good for them because if I'm not mistaken, it's about 32% of EPF's assets are overseas at the moment. And if you look at their last quarter, so their fourth quarter results are not out yet, highly anticipated because everyone wants to know what the EPF dividends are. But if you look at the third quarter results, that's 32% of their asset allocation that's overseas, the international asset allocation, that actually yielded a 45% return in terms of gross investment income. So that's really good for how they've been investing. So here's my take on this, and based on what I've read and the experts that we speak to, is that it's a good thing that EPF has diversified their asset allocation. Too much money in one market, particularly the Malaysian market, which is a small market, is dangerous. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So it's good that they have some diversification in overseas investments. But the question is how much, and that's always been the question, to kind of tweak how much, what percentage, what ratio, and I mean, you know, it really is up. I think that there's a limitation, and the questions have always been whether we should increase that allocation based on the track record of how EPF has been investing. I think they've made all the right moves and really maximized what they've been able to do with their overseas allocation.
So what's been, you know, talking to the expert that you've spoken to and had on the show, what's been sort of the nice, sort of juicy medium percentage that works when it's invested internationally?
Well, I think, and that's really depending on what kind of risk that economist is willing to take, right? I mean, but with EPF, of course, you know, there's a high level of risk. You're talking about people's pension funds here. So the idea is that I think we had a bracket of 30%. And it was supposed to go up to, I think, 30, a little bit more than that. So now, you know, they've just slightly upped a little bit from 30 to 32. So that's not too bad. I mean, they're not taking wild risks with our money. But I want to make sure that we understand what the flip side is.
I was just going to ask you, what is that flip side?
Yeah. So if EPF doesn't invest our money globally in you know, international investments, then all that money is pooled within the local market, and that's too much. Our Malaysian market is really so small, and EPF already has a lot of money within the market. You know, EPF is a big shareholder in many of the top shares in the country already, top performing shares in the country already. So there's a limited amount of return that they can get if they just invest domestically. The idea is to go abroad and find better returns. And you know, EPF has performed consistently well in the past. quite happy. They've proven that they've got solid performances in their real estate and overseas investments. The question is whether the relief measures that were announced, this recently by the government, the ICNAR, the Lestari facilities, whether that will have an impact on the kitty of EPF's kitty, EPF's pool of money.
Our war chest.
Yeah, war chest.
Exactly. Yeah,
Also,
it might have a little effect, but we might not see it yet. But there's bound to be a bit of effect in the future, perhaps.
What would be the flip side then of the sort of picture if our international investments were to actually take a downturn and go south?
So I think that's also a question of timing, right? If you're looking at international investments, we know the global economy is so connected. If we're seeing a slowdown in some parts, it will trickle down eventually to our home market as well. The question is whether the EPF investment team can act quickly enough, whether there's enough of a buffer. I'm sure there are. There have been clear ratios put in place that we don't have too much divested overseas, that any kind of global shock we can't weather well.
But the good news is, so far we've been doing quite well.
We have, yes, we
That's
have
always
been doing
good
quite
news.
well.
Yeah.
We like that very much.
And in the last year, where it's been so unbelievably challenging, the last few quarters, EPF has done very well. So I'm encouraged by what they're doing.